Hello, wonderful people. Welcome to another episode of the Average NBA Fans podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing the game one of the NBA finals that happened between Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets. It was a crazy game. It was what we expected, guys. We were expecting Denver Nuggets to dominate the whole series, and that is what has been happening in the game one. We saw Miami take the lead in the first quarter, and but never coming back in the whole game. What do you think about the game, guys? How was it?
Man, oh man, what a game. I mean, we pretty much expected Nuggets to blow them out. And even though it was like a, 11-point game, I mean, it had all the characteristics of a blowout, right? Jokic was unbelievable. He had like 8 assists in the first half. Jamal Murray was good, but the man of the match for Nuggets tonight was definitely Aaron Gordon. I mean, the first half, I thought that was Shaq on the field tonight with this 6 feet frame, just backing down every guard. He was taking the mismatch to the paint. He was backing them down, going for dunks, going for layups, and that's pretty much what you want from a Nuggets team, right? You obviously have those two stars that are driving your team towards a victory, and those are the two most important. One of the MVPs might have been the 3-time MVP. But at the same point in time, when your role players are showing up to the point where Aaron Gordon is scoring like 22 points, Miami Heat, Miami Heat, I think no team in the entire NBA has a chance with Aaron Gordon. I mean, going 70% from field, backing down every player. What do you guys think about it?
I probably have to disagree with you, where I felt it wasn't a blowout, even though the stats show it was a blowout. Wherein, if you just looked at the game score, you'd probably think it was a blowout. But even in that fourth quarter, Miami was competitive, and that's the one thing that I love about Miami, and that's probably the one thing that is different from all the series that Denver has been in. I mean, all credit to them, they won this game, and like obviously, like you covered, Jokic was wonderful, Murray was wonderful, and Aaron Gordon, for a surprise, he was amazing in that first half. Like you said, he looked somewhat of as dominant as like Shaq was, and like he looked unstoppable just because Miami didn't have size on the floor, and they really can't do much about that, honestly. Like if they sit out Gabe Vincent, they're sitting out a premier offensive option. So I don't think they're gonna be able to do that. But honestly, I don't know where they go from here. Maybe play Hayward Highsmith more because he had an awesome game tonight. He had 18. He had more than Butler, I guess. Uh, who has been looking somewhat disengaged other than that game seven, right? So I don't know what's up with him. I really don't know how to explain Butler. But other than that, Miami has always been fighting, and even in that fourth quarter, they had gotten it down to 9 points. And that's one thing that I would like to point out, that if Nuggets have to win this series, if the Nuggets are going to win, they're always going to have to blow them out. And that's what we saw it took tonight. They had to sort of keep them at a distance. And even in that fourth quarter, they had to reinsert Jokic, who got timely key buckets, quick buckets, the MVP, getting in that work to keep Miami away. Because if they get close, I think they have that ability wherein we've seen them do that countless times. They snatch games. And once they start snatching games, it might be trouble for the Nuggets because the one thing that they have is talent, right? And it's almost reminiscent of all the previous series. They started off against the Bucks, the number one seed of the entire NBA, right? With Giannis at the helm, and they defeated that team. And we thought, oh, come on, like they were more talented, but the Heat just outgraded them. It happened again in the conference finals, and here we are again. Obviously, the Nuggets got game one, and uh, to me, Miami has to win game two. Butler has to be better, Bam has to be Bam, and all of the rest of the role players have to show up. But I think game two is key, and that might decide a lot about the series. If the Nuggets take game two, which they might just because they haven't lost on their home floor, but if they take game two, in my opinion, a sweep is on the table. It might be on the table because they have that size, they have that length. They obviously have better talent, they have better depth, but the one thing that I think Miami has is that grit, is that always staying in that in the game, and like always being close to the teams. And I think that's where they shine, and that's where the Nuggets just have to be better. And I think they almost gave that game one away, and like a couple of calls here and there, which is another debatable topic, that because like Miami only got two two free throws. What are you guys' thoughts on that one? Like, that's a record low, right?
Yeah, I think it's the record low for any NBA Finals game, I think in the last 50 years, maybe ever. But for sure, what you said, right? Jimmy Butler needs to step up. I think he was a step too slow tonight. I think it showed, having to play against seven and coming back to all the altitude. This I'm done with the complete narrative of, the altitude and everything with Denver Nuggets right now. But at the same point in time, Jimmy Butler did look slow. He was the fourth highest scorer on his team, which I think whenever you see the Miami Heat, it's either Jimmy Butler really dialing them up or the role players just crushing the other team. And this was not that crushing play, right? I mean, Max Strus was 0 for 10 from 3. And they were really like letting him take those open threes. And I mean, he's a shooter. And Jimmy Butler went into that post game interview. He said that I'm going to pass you the ball even if you're 0 for 20. I'm going to pass and you're going to shoot. And that's what shooters do. But then again, 0 for 10 from Max Strus, 1 for 7 from Caleb Martin, like 1 for 5, 1 from 6 from Duncan Robinson. It's really difficult for me as a podcaster and a kind of analyzer to think about all of this, right? Because the Nuggets shot really bad from three again. They were 8 for 27, they were like 30% from three. But so are the Heat. And now the Nuggets are getting a lot of free throws, but the Heat got no free throws. But then again, like for 3 quarters, it was pretty much a blowout. And then Miami just kind of came back.
Nah,
Kyle Lowry had
that's
those step back threes.
sort of, but that's what my point was, that even as bad as Miami's role players were playing, even as bad as Butler was playing, Miami was always in the game. They were keeping them at that 12-point mark or that 14-point mark. Like, obviously the lead ballooned up at times, but I felt like they were always just like a step behind, just like a one step behind. It didn't feel like a blow to me, even though Miami as a team was so bad. Like, all of the role players didn't play well. They had combined shooting of what, 2 for 30 or something. Was just horrible shooting. I don't think that's gonna happen again. I mean, they had some good contributions like from Highsmith, which you don't really expect in the next game, but I think some of these things are gonna balance out. And that's what was most impressing to me, because I felt like that these two teams just didn't match up, and I felt like the Nuggets were just gonna blow them out wire to wire. I mean, technically that happened, but I still felt like it was a competition, and I didn't think it was going to be. And that just gave me sort of, even though the Nuggets won, I feel like it was more of a testament to the fact that Miami can fight in this series, which I didn't think was going to happen. So I feel like Miami has a chance in this series, but they really need to win the next one.
I don't think so. I disagree, Rudransh, to a point where I think so. They were fighting. They were fighting really hard. I understand they did not have a very good game by their role players or by Jimmy Butler coming in close. But that's what we've seen throughout in the last series as well. Like Lakers were also fighting their best. Lakers were probably closer than to this than probably Miami Heat is right now. We did not see. We saw 28. The highest lead of this game was probably 28, and average was around 14, 15. I mean, I understand that you're saying that without those contributions coming in, without anything happening with these two, they're still so close. But I don't think so. They're coming back. I think so. The Nuggets were dominating. They dominated the whole court. They Miami has always been a gritty team, right? Has always been the team that will try to fight back. But I don't think so that back is coming. I mean, it would be very important in the game to coming forward, that how do they perform, whether probably Jimmy Butler will have a very big cause. But the Denver Nuggets at the moment seem very dominant. They were able to keep Jimmy Butler quiet. They were able to keep the role players quiet, and I think so. We have to give Denver Nuggets the props to that as well. it was a blowout in my. And again don't understand how it was not a blowout. I still see it as a blowout, but yeah, I think so. It would be very very hard for Miami to probably pull. I mean, they might pull one game, but I don't think so. Anything more is happening in the series.
Like I said, to me, it probably is about perspectives, I guess. So you guys didn't think that. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm a little biased towards Miami and you guys aren't. But
Oh yes, you are.
well, yeah, I am. I agree to that. But my point was, what do you guys attribute Miami's like bad performance to? Do you guys think it's just that Denver is just unbeatable at their home? Is it the altitude? Is it the game seven? Are they all tired? Because to me, really, I just don't see how like or why Jimmy is playing so passive in these last few games. Because one moment he looks like Michael Jordan himself, and the next moment it's all of a sudden his bum ankle is hurting him. So like he had a really good game on those bum ankles in game one and game two in the Celtics, right? In Boston, and they beat Boston, right? So I can't seem to figure out what happened to Jimmy. And like, do you guys think Miami has a chance in game two, or is it just that it's really hard to beat Denver in Denver?
I think this is also one of the criticism, right, we've seen from Mike Malone, right? Wherein I think Mike Malone is a great coach, but in game adjustments is not the biggest positive that Denver Nuggets has shown to me. Even in the Lakers series, I mean, they did have something, but I mean, the Lakers really shot themselves in the foot at the same point. I think that they stick to with that one thing, right? They stick to it. We're not gonna respect Max Strus or Caleb Martin. We want Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo to beat us this game. And I think Mike Malone went after the game too on the stadium on the podium, right, where he said that I'm all right with Bam making 26 points with 25 shots, and that's pretty much what the problem was with the Miami Heat, right? I mean, I don't, I don't want to attribute this to them being fatigued overall, but it really looked like that in the first half when Denver was just flying them off the pitch. I mean, Denver looked fresh. Their starters were playing heavy minutes in the first half, but they probably didn't need to. They were up by like 15, but we still didn't see a lot of minutes for Christian Braun or Jeff Brown because Jeff Green because Jokic wanted to play. He was fresh after like a 9-day holiday. And at the same point of time, the Miami Heat, I mean, these players, right? Max to Caleb Martin, these are players that are gritty. They're going to run you. They're going to run you off. They're going to show that intensity. And that was somewhat missing. And I think that is probably something of a fatigue. And that's pretty much what, after the first quarter, I think Mike Malone just told his team, right? That we're going to not respect any of these shooters. We're going to let them take that shot. We, you're going to have to beat us, right? These shooters, however good, however many 40% from three seasons Duncan you have in the regular season, you're gonna have to show us in the postseason again because we're not gonna let every action be completely guarded. We're not gonna get Jimmy Butler open layups at the basket. You're gonna have to show it to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's also something that I saw that Denver has different coverages for Jimmy as compared to Celtics, and they're sort of showing him that double. They're sort of showing him that help, and that may be a factor. But overall, I feel like he's just been too passive. He's just content with passing it to his teammates. Um, and Aaron Gordon did a hell of a job guarding Jimmy as well. He has that length, he has that wingspan, which might be bothering him. But I think Jimmy can be Jimmy when he wants to be Jimmy. It's just, I think he's being passive on his own. And it might be his injury, it might be the fatigue, I guess. And I think whatever people might say, that Denver does have probably the best home court advantage in the NBA. And I think at least that narrative is out for good, that the Denver Nuggets are going to be rusty just because they sat for the longest period. And I think that was the shittiest take. And obviously that was mainly on the major broadcast channels and stuff like that, right? They have obviously the shittiest take. But
You have no clue how many ESPN broadcasters said that I'm not going to go to the gym. I am I'm sick of the altitude. Someone told me I can't have alcohol in Nuggets because of the altitude. All of this shit. I am done with the entire narrative on the altitude with Nuggets, because I mean this team has been unbeatable, right? They were all obviously downplayed by all of these broadcasters. They said that this was one of the easiest run to the finals, but you know what? The Suns were the favorites to win that series. The Lakers were not the favorites, but a
But
lot of
that's
broadcasters wanted
honestly,
them to
that's
win the
what
series.
they,
And
yeah. But honestly, that's what they do every time. Like they did the same thing with the Warriors when they said, "Oh, once they got to the finals, it was apparently the easiest conference, and like it was the
exactly.
easiest road to the finals." It's always like that, and that's just stupid to do that because it's always a formidable challenge until it's done, right? But anyhow, let's move on to the predictions. Just a fun fact before we start predicting. I
I mean, before
Yeah, go ahead.
before we move on to the predictions, I just wanted to add a small point. The only reason why, and it's a hot take, because the only reason why Jimmy Butler is not
Wow.
performing is because he's not needed that clutch situation. He's in his comfort zone right at the moment that we'll see. If the probably Heat are 2-0 down,
Oh,
then we'll see the clutch Jimmy Butler
oh,
coming back. Otherwise, I don't think so. He's coming back earlier. I mean, he just needs those clutch situations to perform, and he needs that pressure on his head that we'll probably be knocked out of this series if I don't perform well. I think so. That is the motivation
so he
that Jimmy
needs
Butler needs to come back.
so he needs his Grant Williams to
External push.
get him in his face, right?
Yeah. He,
I mean,
he needs Moses Brown to really punch him.
But like another,
yeah. Let's quickly move on to prediction.
yeah, sorry, I just wanted to give another nugget before we get into the predictions. Apparently, Miami has never beaten the Denver Nuggets in Denver Nuggets in like I don't know, like the last 6 years or something like that, since 2016, I
Wow.
guess. So, uh, do you guys think that's
7
gonna
years.
change in next game, or do you guys not see it? Go ahead with your
And right with
I
that,
mean,
prediction.
we
we'll
can
see that in
move.
predictions.
Yeah, go ahead with your
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go
predictions.
on the predictions.
All right, guys. We pretty much have the tradition, right? Best player of game two, bust of game two, surprising player of game two, and prediction of game two.
Go ahead, Srijan.
Go ahead, Rutanj.
Oh, okay. Um, to me, best player probably has to be Jimmy if it's, or maybe it has to be Bam. Either of those guys probably have to step up. Bam really played well in game one as well, but like both of those guys have to play well, and I think it doesn't have to be a best player. I think it has to be like uh, the rest of the role players that had a bad game collectively. I feel like all of those guys need to have a collectively good game for Miami to win, because Miami isn't really that team which has just a really strong 1-2 punch like the Denver Nuggets. But moving on to the bust, oof, I don't know. Maybe Caleb Martin, because Caleb Martin has had an off game. And, I read something about him having maybe an illness or something. He's apparently not practicing or something. So he might not have the best of games. So maybe I'm going with that. Surprising players, I don't know. Honestly, can anybody surprise us on the Heat anymore? Kyle Lowry, I guess. Once again, Kyle Lowry or Kevin Love, I guess. Because those two guys are the ones that haven't had like expressly like crazy games. So maybe those guys. But
So Kevin Love is
since I
back
want
in the
this to be,
starting lineup.
yeah, that is the speculation about Kevin Love, that they're saying that he might be reinserted into the starting lineup. That might be a crazy look. I like him for the Miami Heat. I said that in the previous series as well, that he plays good with his big size. He has that shooting ability, and he just has that IQ. He's been there, he's done that. I think he's a very good vet. But moving to the final prediction, since I want this to be a 7 game series, I am taking the Heat to win game two. But I'm very reluctant because Denver is very strong at their home. So you never know, but you need the whole of Miami team to show up for them to take one game. And if they don't take game two, I feel like a sweep is on the cards for sure.
Right. Again, according to me, the best player of the game in game two will undoubtedly be the Joker. Obviously, the Jokic has been performing well for all the series, and he has been unstoppable both offensively and defensively in the past series and in the previous game as well. Uh, the biggest bust again. I am the one who has the wildest take. I think so. Jimmy Butler will not show up again, and he will be the biggest bust on his team. Or if we compare both the teams, because we have a lot of expectations from him. Him not showing up is a bust. Is a bust move. Surprising. I am not really sure who could probably surprise us. I think so. I'll agree with Rudanj. I think so. Kevin Love, if he comes back, he would be a surprising player. We saw the kind of impact that he made with the Boston series as well. In the Boston series as well, and I think so he could make a great impact considering that he is taller and has a bigger size as well. He could probably be a good addition in the Miami Heat team. Uh, the next game, I am still picking Denver Nuggets since they have the home court advantage. They have been phenomenal at home, and they have and they'll be. I mean, I'm not saying Jimmy Butler to show up. I'm not sure how the other team will, how the other role players will perform since they were not there in the first game. So I'm just picking Nuggets to win this one and probably sweep the Miami Heat.
Yeah, you don't
Ooh,
have to pretend
that
anymore, buddy. You have been outed as a Miami Heat
And
hater at this point. They beat your Celtics and now you're just salty, bro.
it's just that they're against the teams that I like better. I don't hate
Nah,
Miami.
nah, nah.
It's just
You're
that
just salty they beat the Celtics, bro.
that's that's true.
we had an agreement before the game that we would not bring up the Celtics in the podcast tonight, but like, we overran that. Going for me, I think the best that undoubtedly I have to take is one of the best player I think in the league, Jokic.
Yep,
Whenever he's on the floor, whether they're winning or they're losing, I mean, he is probably
that is true.
almost always the best. I had was the second best player on the floor. So yeah, but I have to take Bam Adebayo. He is an underrated day-to-day Davis. I mean,
Oh,
I've never seen him be good 2 games in a row for a long time now. I
that's
mean,
fair. That's fair.
I've seen
Yeah.
him a lot of series. I mean, against the Bucks, probably defensively he was great throughout the series. But apart from that, I think
But that's why
he
he hasn't had
has
an
been
issue.
doing games. Yeah, I mean, you don't need Bam sometimes when Jimmy is on his game, but I mean, you
Mm,
love to see an aggressive Bam, right?
that's
You
true.
love to see when he's dunking the ball. It's the Ben Simmons scenario all over again. Okay, I'm not bringing Ben Simmons in. Surprising player, you know what? Like Rudran said, like you all stated a million times, no one on the Miami Heat is surprising to me right now. I think any one of the shooters could have a good night. They can go like 40%, even 50% from three. And I think we'll all be like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
It could be Kalen Martin. It could be like Max Strus. It could be Duncan Robinson. It could be Gabe Vincent. I mean, Gabe Vincent has been amazing throughout the playoff series. He's been probably like one
Like
of the
he's
top
he's
point guards.
probably the one most consistent player on the Heat.
Yeah, I mean, not from three, but overall playmaking wise, he's always, always probably making the right move, right? He's not always
Yeah,
shooting the
that's what I'm
ball.
saying.
I mean,
He is the
you,
most consistent player on the Heat, so he probably
yeah,
isn't going to surprise me at this point. He's the one I'm
yeah,
kind of banking on to be good at this point.
yeah. No one is surprising at this point, but at the same point in time, that's what you love from the Miami
Hmm,
Heat actually.
that's
That
true.
every one of the role players know their roles, right? Max Strus is not going to go for a dunk when even if he's 6'5". He knows his role is to just stand in the corner and shoot, and that's what he's going to
Hmm,
do. Caleb Martin might, he had some fancy footwork and fancy midway, cutaway steps, sideways, middies against the Celtics, but at the same point in time, I mean, he knows his role. That his role overall is playing good defense and just making that open shot. So I mean, there's no surprising there. But prediction wise, I think Nuggets. I'm not going to predict a sweep because I think Miami Heat. I mean, I have to give them
hmm.
credit. They went to the finals after being down 15 in the playing game, the second playing game. But I think the Nuggets got this, so I'm going to say 2-0 Nuggets, and they probably take game three. But at the same point in time, I think Nuggets are. I don't see a blowout, but at the same point in time, I see it not being close either way. So yeah, Nuggets going 2-0 up, and that's going to be my
Hmm.
I mean, I think so. In my opinion, it would be a 3-0 for Nuggets.
Oh,
Then probably Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler show up and then come up for one game. But I think so.
See, now
Joker will.
Celtics so much that he wants them to do the Celtics shift.
I told you guys just mad,
No, no, no.
bro. Chill with your takes, bro. Take the L, bro.
You know what?
I
This is
mean,
this is one of the only playoff series in the entire playoffs where I have no one to hate,
That's true.
which is
That's
like
true.
eh, even though Miami players are corny as fuck, man. I mean, James Butler with all that shit and Max Strus, we're here to win it. We're not going down. All of that shit. I mean, for sure they're corny, but at the same point, there's no hating those players. They're amazing players, and like overall, you cannot hate that Miami Heat storyline. And obviously, Nuggets. I mean, what? Even though they're
yeah,
swept and they
I'm a Heat supporter. You can see the red color in the background, and you're saying that I hate the Heat house. That's possible. That color is
wow.
for Miami Heat.
Get on
Odd
the
and
bandwagon
whoever
train.
is running.
Choo choo.
Where's my Nugget T-shirt, man?
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It was lovely having a conversation with these two. Again, please make sure that you're following our podcast. And please make sure that you're sharing as much with your NBA fans or your NBA friends that watch a lot of NBA but do not have quality content. Because let's be honest, we make better content than TNT on ESPN. They just have the stupid takes. We have the real takes of the NBA. But yeah, till then, bye bye. Take care. Have fun. Peace.
Okay.